Hey, thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in. Appreciate you. We inevitably, no matter who we're talking to, where we are, for some weird reason, and what the topic is, like for someone coming on the pod or another webinar, someone inevitably always goes, yeah, but I really need help with my board. Or I really need help with my committee. You know what I mean? So we're having that conversation. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Really, really appreciate it. Sandy Hilsenrath, Jason Ledlow. I'm Trevor Nelson. We're from HGA Fundraising. Thank you so much for joining us. A little bit about us. We provide the most profitable auction items and mission-focused auction items in the event fundraising space. We help nonprofits raise more money. You can check us out at hgafundraising.com. And do us a favor. Let us know where you're at in the chat function. You can ask any question that you like throughout this entire webinar. This is not your grandmother's webinar. It's a very interactive webinar. Ask any question under the sun out of the experts today. I'm here to moderate and to make sure that we have all those questions answered. We'll have you here for an hour talking about better board and committee engagement, just getting more out of those folks. It seems like a lot of times we just are apprehensive about having the difficult conversation with our boards and committees. And that's why we have Jason and Sandy here today to talk about it. They have 5 decades between the two of them of experience.
That sounds like we're really old, doesn't it?
I was going to say more for Jason.
Hold on. No. It just sounds, no, you're mastered. So yeah. Let's get to boards and committees. And Jason had a really great idea about how he wanted to kind of just start this conversation and get us the ball rolling, so to speak. And why boards and committees are often ineffective. And we're going to start there because that's where the questions come to us, from. It's like, I can't get this board member to do this, or I can't get this committee to do that. And so we're going to kick it off with it's not uncomfortable, but just like where the problems lie. And then we'll get into some more of the how-to. And you're going to leave here with some tools on how to fix it. So really good stuff. Yeah. Let's start.
Right.
Let's start.
Well, I don't know how I could get teed up better than that.
Come on now.
I spend an inordinate amount of time thinking about this stuff because this is what we do on a daily basis. We all talk about it significantly. We were just at a conference up in South Dakota with a bunch of really great fundraising nonprofit CEOs. But it still comes back to one thing, and they always say, when you ask about how's your board engagement, how are they doing, how's your committees, it's always, God, they just won't help us raise money. They just won't do this. They can't help get this done. And so I spend a lot of time just thinking about it, having served on a lot of boards. And so I really started thinking about my own time being a board member, several nonprofits, and what that was like. And I think when you're the CEO, executive director, director of development, anywhere, in the nonprofit space, and you're really working in that world, it is what you do. This is what we do every day. We talk about it. Literally, Sandy, Trevor, we, as a company, we talk about this stuff all the time. And I know that you guys are living it all the time. But if you think about board member, I go back to whenever I was a board member, and I would be there leaning in, listening to what's going on. Yeah, okay. And as soon as I walk out the door, my wife's calling me, telling me I need to swing by the store. One of the kids is calling, saying I had a flat tire. Then I've got to go back to work. I got something else going on. And life just catches up. And guess what? Everything that we talked about in that board meeting, a nonprofit, is gone. It is literally out the door, and there's nothing there. But then I started really thinking about it even more than that. And I started thinking about, when did I see the boards I were on be most effective and when did I not? And it really occurred to me, especially, we were preparing for this and while I was doing this, and Sandy, you tell me if this was your experience, but the most effective that I ever saw a board was when they were asked to do something very specific.
Yes.
When they were the most ineffective is when it was very general. Mm-hmm. And I had to think about that, and I was like, golly, that was true. If somebody came and said, hey, everybody, I want you to fill out these cards. These are going to go to donors. They've made some kind of commitment in the last, since the last board member, and just a thank you, and please sign it. Here's the name, information, and we'll send these out and get them mailed for you. That was very specific, and everybody would you'd see nothing but the tops of heads because they're writing, filling their cards out, doing it. Okay. That was very specific. When somebody said, hey, we need you to sell 10 tickets to this event coming up, just 10. That's all we need you to do is just do 10. 80% of the people would go get their 10 tickets sold.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was, hey, we really need some help in raising some more money, crickets. Because it's just back to the whole thing. They get just, that's not what they're eating, sleeping, and breathing. They're back to stopping by the store for their wife, going and helping their kid with a flat tire, all those things that, life comes up. And so, Sandy, I'm curious, is that does that resonate with you at all from the time when you were raising money?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it, same for boards and committees, right? It's that, emergency situation where they say, when you're being trained, right, Mr. Fireman, you can back me up on this, but if you witness something happening, you should point at someone and say, you call 911, because otherwise everybody just stands there.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And no one takes ownership.
That's so true.
So it's kind of the same thing, it needs to be, it needs to be laid out. Yeah. And review with them.
And that brings kind of into the, the conversation, why are they ineffective? So this is the second thing that, I spent a lot of time talking to him about is, and I'm going to just say doesn't matter in the for-profit, nonprofit, whatever, 90% of the time, if you listen to people, presidents, CEOs, owners, whatever, executive directors talk, 90% of the stuff they gripe about are people. And I'm sure that everybody here listening to this says, nope, we never have a personnel issue. Everything's always perfect. If anybody does, please put it in chat. We'd love to hear about it. I'd love to hear that if you have it down perfect, because we'll have you come on the webinar and help us do this. But I really do believe this, that it is a leadership issue. It really comes down to this thing of leadership. And I said this to Trevor. I don't know if I mentioned this to Sandy, but I said it just occurred to me. Leaders are followed. Mm-hmm. Bosses must be obeyed.
Yeah.
So the visual of that is you've got the leader, somebody up there holding the standard, leading the charge, and everybody's following in. And the other one is the one where everybody's in the back with a stick poking everybody to get them to go where they want them to go, trying to herd the cats. And I thought about that in the terms of board members, and it's kind of the same thing. If we're just trying to lead them and tell them what we need and explain the situation to them and give them a very specific mission, like you said, you go call 911. And I remember that. I remember that in that training, very, very clear in CPR training. You point somebody, you go do it. Because if you just say, somebody call 911, everybody nowadays, everybody's pulling their phone out.
Everybody has a phone in their hand. Yeah. But
they're all videoing, sitting there watching, but I think that's where it comes down is we have to provide that leadership to the board to give them the example. And yes, we have presidents and we have people on the board. We have committee chairs and all those things. And sometimes they're fantastic. And I'm helping an organization right now that has a very strong committee chair. She's really good. She's organized down with it, can say, okay, you're going to get this to me back by when?
Mm-hmm.
It's a definitive. There's no sketch around. Well, I'll see about next week. Okay, on Wednesday of next week.
Right. When should I check back in with you?
She's pinning you down, and you're like, yep, I'll have it to you by Wednesday. That is where I think the failure in most board participation is the way we're asking the question, and that it's not specific, it's not defined, and there's not a time on it. It's just a general thing. We've got our charity event coming up. I need your help selling tables.
Yeah.
Okay. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Yep.
You're putting the onus on the executive director, CEO at the organization a little bit too, right?
I totally am. No, that's the point. That's the whole thing. Is it really comes down to that?
There's something of tremendous proportion that we noticed. Like even last week, Sandy, when we were on the webinar with the One Cause gals, a question got brought up about bidding should be anonymous because we had a board member that got upset because they got outbid by someone.
Right.
And I just don't, there's this, like I said, there's something going on where it's like we walk around eggshells as the executive director, as the CEO, as the development staff, as just any programs. It doesn't matter who you are. Like we walk around like they're
Right.
like you said, Jason, like they're not normal people. Like their kid doesn't get a flat tire. Like they don't pay $6 for a cup of coffee. We all do. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I was like, and it struck me, and I'm not, there was a lot of opinions shared actually about that one question. And I was thinking about it and walking with my wife this morning. We talked about it because she listened to the webinar or listened to me while we were recording the webinar. And she's like, why would a board member, because she's this watching from the outside, right? She's like, why would a board member get upset if they are outbid? Why would we walk
no,
around
that's the best thing to happen, right?
Yes, because we're raising more money. Yes. And I think that even goes back to like, early and often and how this is, how their roles are presented by the CEO, by the executive director, by the paid staff at the organization. And you said this multiple times, be very, very specific. And that'll actually segue really, really nicely into the next topic, which is making sure that they're equipped for success and the responsibility of the organization, of the executives at the organization to do just that. Let's talk about providing tools and support there.
Because I think too often, so you mentioned eggshells, right? Too often the conversations are had, you want to bring this person in, they are, in a position of power, they have a big network, and you're, okay, like, let me go and talk to this person about coming on the board, but you're walking around on eggshells during that conversation, right? So I know Jason's going to dive into this, but, and you don't want to overwhelm them, and some people are just very, trepidatious about going in with like, okay, this is what we need, because then they're scared of the no. But don't be scared of the no, because if it's not the right fit, it's not the right fit. But I'll let you go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, they say no, they're the
wrong.
Well,
I just think that your point is you walk around on eggshells. Why are you walking around on eggshells? Well, the board has 3 jobs, really. Hire and fire the CEO or executive director. That's 1. 2 is to show oversight to the organization. And then 3, to help raise money. Really, that's the 3 jobs. Now they'll come up with other stuff that, well, I'm over the committee of programs, and I'm over the committee of this and that and blah, 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 and whatever, and the reality is no, you're really there to help raise money. You're there to do it. Do you like your CEO? Yes or no? It's just a simple deal. Do you want to see that person being fired? No. Okay. If that's the question, move on to the next one. You have oversight. Let me give you a great example. I went and spoke to a board. I get up there and talk to them, and I said, these 3 questions. I said, well, let me ask you, does anybody here want to get rid of Jan? No, we love her. She's great. Okay. Does anybody else? All right. So we've got that part's done. We're not here to hire and fire the CEO today. I noticed you guys just approved the audit. Since you approved the audit, that means that tells me that oversight is good. So we're not here to talk about that. So the final thing is to raise money.
Right.
And so now we've got to talk about what it is that we can do specifically. And when we went through that, because they're like, well, what can we do? Okay. So that brought up the whole thing of specifics. So then I turn around back to the executive director. What do you need help with the most right now? She said, we need to have outreach to our large donors and for retention. Okay, great. So now that we understand that's what we're doing, so now we can be very specific, and we created a plan for outreach for the board to make a certain amount of calls every week. They all agreed to it. Anybody here not to? Because, if you go and ask a board, because I did this, I said, here loves to pick up the phone, call, and ask people for money. Anybody? One guy started to raise his hand, and I said, "No, you put your hand down." He's a politician. He literally was a politician. He was a state representative. I said, "Put your hand down. I know this is what you like to do." Had one other guy raise his hand. Well, he was a money guy. He, he would call and talk to people and so he could invest their money, sell them insurance, all kinds of stuff like that. And so we all had a good chuckle. But I said, "This is normal. This is every board makeup in the world." If you give everybody a call reluctance test, it's going to be 90%, 99% that don't want to pick up the phone call and make a cold call. So why are we asking them to do that? And that's the thing is, so we ask them to do something that they're going to be reluctant to do anyway. And we wonder, as fundraisers, why won't my board help me? Because I'm asking them to do something that's almost impossible for them to do regardless. They won't even do it in their own behalf, much less anybody else's. So then, and this whole thing came around to making invitations. What if you're not asking for money? What if you're just making an invitation? I'm just inviting you to be a part of it, which brings up to something that we're going to get to. I don't know if we're on the timeline for this, but it kind of flows. They don't know what to say.
Yeah.
They literally do not know what to say. Trevor, you can tell the story. We did a boot camp for fundraisers 3 years ago.
Yeah.
We did it down in Dallas.
Yeah.
And I did a little test, and I handed out these pieces of paper to everybody that was there. And I said, write down what you do, what your organization does in 10 words or less. So they all did. And I picked on one organization specifically, not because of them, but they just happened to have 3 people there. They had the executive director, a past president, and a current vice president of the board. And I pulled theirs up and I said, do you mind if I share your stuff? And they're like, oh, well, okay. All 3 of them gave a completely different answer.
Yeah. They all love
now, it was all generally the same. They all, and they loved the mission. They cared about it. None of them were under 10 words, and they were all and they were completely different though. It wasn't a unified message. Yeah. And so I said, in all fairness, I want you to know that I picked on you guys because I kind of figured it would be this way. And, but if you, as the executive director, the president of the board, and the past president, the vice president can't all say the same thing, then how in the world are you going to get the rest of your board to do it, or your committee, or anybody else?
Yeah. Well, you're talking about, I wish they'd fundraise more was the big question. I wish, because the question I wish that we could mobilize the board / committee and just get them to fundraise more, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you say it very plainly, but very concisely. It's like, well, maybe they don't know what to say.
And they don't.
Yeah.
But, I did a coaching session last night or late yesterday evening, and it was like one of maybe in the last 200 coaching sessions where when I said, tell me what you do in 10 words or less, she hit it like that.
Oh, wow.
I mean, right on the head. It was like 8 words.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's really good.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't happen. And even people who have been doing the same organization for 10 years or longer, and they know the mission, they know what we do, but being able to articulate it in a way that conveys the impact to the community in 10 words or less, which I call it a marketing statement. Yeah. It's not to take the place of a mission statement, but it's a marketing statement that just introduces.
Yeah.
Whenever we meet somebody around here, if somebody asks, hey, Sandy, what do you do? I'm with HJ Fundraising. We help nonprofits raise more money.
Yep.
That's all she says.
Yeah.
Am I right?
And we've had that conversation on our calls. So everybody in this company will say the same thing. Yeah.
They do.
Yep.
They do. Everybody here says, but the thing is, and somebody asks me and they say, Jason, what do you do? I help nonprofits raise more money. Sometimes they go, nice.
Normally it's
and that's okay. That's okay. But sometimes they go, really? I'm on the board of a nonprofit. Have you ever heard of ABC Charity? No, I haven't. Well, yeah, we're on the board. We're going to have a fundraiser. Is that something you guys do? I mean, it's just this stuff comes up, but that's okay. Or, I was on it's just some conversation that's going to come out of it.
Yeah.
Well, the same thing if you say, well, we help send kids with cancer to camp. Okay, that's nice. Well, that's really nice.
Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think
but then some people you're going to hit and they're going to go, whoa, tell me more about because you're starting a conversation. So if you equip your board members to where they can start a conversation, not ask for money,
right?
You're going to get them to participate because now they're going, well, no, I'm just out here starting conversations and talking to people.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the next step of that conversation is, share why it's important to you. Why you're involved, right?
Yeah.
What do you do? What are you working on? And why are you involved?
Yeah.
The why is important.
It only leads to more in the best possible way. I think of 2 experts that we've had on the pod in the last, handful of months. We had Kevin Brown came on and he was talking about just like, we just get really over clever. And he said, complicated messages complicate fundraising. And he also said something really good where he's like, just be clear over clever, and just, nail it down. I'm going to actually ask folks that are watching, if you want us to work through it with you right now, you could sign up for a coaching session with Jason. Our time's free. And we love doing this kind of stuff. And we get kind of geeky about it. We really like them. I call it the missions marketing message, the triple M, 10 words or less. And yeah, if you're worried about that or thinking about that or don't have it nailed down, we could do it right now with you. If you want to throw it in the chat,
Yeah,
great.
share it.
We could talk about that. But, it's like another thing. It's like, who's the gentleman, Sandy, that was in New York that wrote Passion Isn't Enough?
David Rode?
David Rode, pardon me. And he came on. Yeah, sorry. And he came on the pod as well. And that's a great point, because it isn't enough. Just the fact that you care is amazing, right? But it's not enough when you're articulating that message. It's just not.
I like to
enough,
say,
right?
I love the mission. I love this organization. Well, guess what? Love doesn't pay the bills.
Yeah.
Right. That's where the give-get comes in, right? When you're having those conversations about what's expected and onboarding your initial conversations, and then when you're onboarding your board members, that give-get conversation about what the expectation is.
I want to ask you a question, Sandy, about committees, just because you produce so many events. Sandy, everybody, she's on Team HGA. She's part of the family, but raised money for almost 2 decades with JDRF, now known as Breakthrough T1D. And you had a very lockdown program and step by step. And I know that you're very fastidious about these things, but when you are getting folks together for an event, like an event committee, for instance, or fundraising committee, I mean, did you spend an hour and a half the first meeting just laying out, okay, this is what we're doing, this is the clear objective? Like, talk about just and how you matured that over time in doing
Sure. Yeah. And I always had a committee chair too, that I was partnered with. And so that person would help me have those conversations and lay out the expectations and do the follow-up, and, I've individual follow-up, I would say, is important as well. And so, you have your committee meetings every, say, once a month or every 3 weeks, whatever your cadence is there. But you also need to, I had a tab set up for each one of my committee members. So say it was my auction committee, and, this person was responsible for soliciting 15 to 20 auction items. They had a tab and a spreadsheet, and I knew exactly who they were supposed to reach out to. I had notes on our last conversation, and I'd have a conversation with them and say, just like you were saying, so when are you going to make these calls? When are you going to make these calls by? Let's set up a time to meet. And so we'll meet on Wednesday, the 15th at 2:00, and we'll go over the progress. And sometimes you'd reach out to them. And I mean, I'm not immune to the challenge of, oh yeah, sorry, didn't get to that, that type of conversation. And so then it's like, okay, well, what can we do now? Let's take where we are now, meet them where they're at. Right. And what can we do in the next week or two to move the needle?
How many conversations? I'm curious, Sandy, let's just say out of 20 of those conversations, how many would be in the deal where they'd say, yeah, sorry, I just didn't get that done?
I mean, over almost 20 years, I mean, I had different committees and so at any point in time, I mean, maybe out of 20, it's a good amount. I mean, unfortunately, it was a good amount.
But you couldn't just throw your hands up and go, well, they're not doing it, so I guess we're just not going to raise any money, could you?
No, absolutely not.
The mission still has to go on. It's got to be funded. We've got to get there.
Right.
So talk to us, I think this is a really good thing, because I think a lot of people are stuck. What action do I take? And I'd love to hear what you would do specifically. Let's just say that I'm the person and I go, Sandy, I just didn't get it done.
Right. And so, it's about laying out a plan. Right. And so, here are some people. I mean, yes, I would, this is not ideal, but I would jump in sometimes. Do you mind if I or myself or one of my colleagues reach out to these people? And then you would, call them and name drop. But that's not ideal. You want the committee member to be out there doing this work for you. That's why you have a committee, right? And so I would ask questions. Clarifying questions. Okay, what's the challenge? What are you finding most challenging in making these phone calls or reaching out to these folks? And so then you work through that with them. That would be, I would assume that the same thing for a board member, and whether that's a executive director, board member conversation, or, a tag team between a board president and an executive director with the board member. Here's what we agreed to, or this is what we discussed, right? And how you would become active with the organization. And so, one, ask them for their feedback on their own performance, right? And then say, okay, well, where are the pain points? What are the challenges you're experiencing, and come up with a plan with them to overcome those.
I think there's a real opportunity to love on people at this point. I think it's where, what I mean by that is say, hey, look, I get it. I know you probably got 50,000 things going on, and this just kind of gets out there. So do you mind if I just kind of run through a checklist with you? Do you feel good about what you're going to say? Just our opening statement. Hey, we help kids with cancer go to camp. Okay. You got that down. Do you have the list? Got your numbers? Would it be okay if maybe I did some calls with you? Would that be beneficial? Is this just one of those things? Tell me what I can do to help. If I just got to go, Jason,
partner with them.
Get up off your butt, go make these phone calls and do it. And sometimes that's what it is.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that, the other thing is, and this is, I think, real important. I had a board that I was on, and there was a committee, and they said, do we have your permission to hold you accountable? Do we have permission to hold you accountable? And I'm going to give you an example of accountability, because it came up on me. So I was on a board. We all said, yes, we give permission to be accountable. We got to do this. Okay. We're trying to get this checklist done, these things done. And I was a communications chair. Okay. On the deal. Everybody was hitting all the marks except for guess who? Communications chair. I got a call from the current president and the incoming president. And they said, hey man, we need to have a call. We got to have an uncomfortable conversation. I know we're going to talk about that in a minute. And they said, man, everybody else is hitting their deal and you haven't. You haven't been on a couple of the regional calls you're supposed to be on. You haven't done this. I mean, basically they said, you're letting the team down. Everybody else is holding their part up and you're not. And we will fail if you don't get this done. What can we do? And I said, you just did it.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Lit a fire under my rear end, because that's what I needed, was accountability. I didn't need, I knew what to say. I knew what to do. I just needed somebody to hold me accountable to get it done. Yeah. And I think that, a lot of our board members, the reason that they're our board members, the reason they're on our committees is because it's not because they don't have anything to do. They're busy. Mm-hmm. They've got stuff going on. We asked them to come on because they were connected in the community. They had something going on. They're, have businesses, they're in positions, they work at companies, they're around the people that we want to, we want to be around. And so we get them on our committee, and then we don't hold them accountable, because back to the eggshells, we're afraid we're going to offend them. So sometimes it's okay to say, can I hold you accountable? Would you allow me to help hold you accountable? It's just kind of a simple thing.
Yeah. Lay that groundwork.
And most of the time they're going to go, you probably need to hold me accountable. Help me do this, because I'm going to walk out of here. I'm going to have 15 phone calls, 6 text messages, and then I'm going to be back in the whirlwind. Yeah. But if you call me up and say, hey, Jason, I need you to get this done. Can we get this done by tomorrow noon? I'm going to call you. Yeah. Guess what it's going to do to me? I'm going to get it done.
Yeah. Well, here's a conversation too that I had earlier this week. The ED was doing everything that they should have, right? Laid out the expectations, had, conversations beforehand. And then, some were not meeting expectations. And so they sat and did got feedback on themselves, right? On their performance. Well, what do you do when someone thinks that they're just the cream of the crop and they're doing a great job, and they're not, the self-awareness in their performance is not there. And so they're like, yeah, I'm doing great, and giving themselves all great check marks on their list. And now you have to have an even more uncomfortable conversation, because Jason, in your situation, you were like, yeah, you're right.
Well, I think that's probably where you have to have that. I think that's kind of where it comes down to, when you've got somebody that is not living up to the expectation, and it's okay. Yeah. And, that's what I call it. I literally say, if I'm going to have that with somebody, I say, hey, we need to have an uncomfortable conversation. Yeah. It's going to be uncomfortable for me. It's going to be uncomfortable for you. Yeah. But but we need to have it. We have a saying around here. Anytime I've ever interviewed somebody to come to work at HGA, I ask a question, and I've used this in my other companies as well. I say, when's the most important time to tell the truth? Oh, well, you always want to tell the truth. Yeah. But when's it most important? Well, the answer is when you least want to. Mm-hmm. We've all been there. There's that deal, and it's uncomfortable. I don't want to do it. But if you just say, Sandy, we need to have an uncomfortable conversation. and it doesn't feel good. And that's what happened to me. Literally, I had these two guys call me who I think a lot of. They called me up. Hey guys, what's going on? Hey, everything. I literally went around the world with these guys. Okay. They call me up and say, we got to have an uncomfortable conversation, Jason.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You're not holding your end up. Ouch. Okay.
Cool
Did I want to hear it? No.
Yeah. Yeah.
But was it most important that I did? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to be the one that lets the team down.
Right.
Yeah. And when you have that conversation and it's okay to do that, to say, Trevor, I've done this with Trevor, my business partner, my best friend. I've literally done this. I said, man, we need to have an uncomfortable conversation. And there was no conflict. It was just that we needed to make a decision about which way we're going to go with the company. Mm-hmm. And, those things it's okay to do that.
God, you feel
give
so
yourself
much better,
permission.
too. You feel so much better actually when you lay it all out there. I mean, lay it all out there on the table. Why be unabashed? I heard something very, very interesting because I want you both to get into more about the tension and the quote unquote conflict that happens potentially with these conversations. And Jason and I famously always say, tension is good. Actually, we could talk about that.
Well, there's healthy tension.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
precisely.
Mm-hmm.
I heard something fascinating this week where someone said, talking specifically about nonprofit fundraising, there are no more comfortable problems to talk about in the world. There are no more, comfortable situations when we're facing these challenges. It's just uncomfortable. I get, just face the music. It's uncomfortable, but that's okay. There, he's like, there are no more comfortable problems to solve. They've all been solved. The only ones that we have left, if you just reframe it, the only ones that we have left are the uncomfortable problems. He's like, and he said something very, very interesting, actually. He said, awareness isn't enough. That's what he said. He said, just shining, it was like awareness, we know it's a problem. Awareness is there. We have the awareness to know it's a problem. Let's, once again, there are no more comfortable problems to solve. It's very, very interesting. And it gets us to, it's talking more about the fact that, and Jay, get into it. I mean, why is tension healthy? Why is it healthy? It seems very cathartic to me. When I've witnessed these conversations or had these conversations, I usually, unless it gets really acrimonious, feel better. Because now we know where everyone sits. Now we know where everyone's, is at and what we need to do, right? That only comes with thoughtful leadership. But let's just talk about, the uncomfortable conversation, having that with your committee, having that with your board, and why tension can actually be healthy.
You can't pull a load up the mountain with a slack rope.
Good. Oh, that's good. I was thinking about the mountain when you're talking about leadership and just
but you cannot pull. Let's just say that your goal is you need to raise $1 million.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you're going to help these kids go, I just keep using the same one. We want to help all these kids with cancer go to camp. You've got to pull the team up the hill. There's got to be, to move this boulder up the hill, this load, there's got to be tension in the rope. You've got to have tension. Otherwise, people's effort is wasted.
Yeah.
It is wasted effort.
Flimsy.
And that's one of the things that, creating an atmosphere of healthy tension is where that means everybody knows we're pulling, we're making headway, we're getting somewhere. There's a healthy tension. We've made it to 600,000. We've made it over the halfway mark. There's some tension building. We want that. The great movies, the great things. For things we love to be a part of, or tension. That when you have some tension in the room, there's excitement. There's this.
There's a purpose. It makes it worth fighting for.
We're going to be part of something great. We're going to get there. Are we going to make it? 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 Yes, we did. Okay. Then there's this excitement. That's where the tension comes from. You have to have tension, otherwise there's no movement. We're all just standing there. The reins are slack. The harness is easy. And, it's hard. Okay. Here's a great example. Trevor, you have to have tension in the chain when you're pedaling up the mountain. Okay. Yeah, there has to be.
Yeah.
If you're not going to go. You can only, because otherwise, which way can you go with slack in the rope, slack in the chain? Down. The only place you're going is down.
Mm-hmm.
The only way you can rise is with tension. So all these things we try to, I just want to, I don't want tension. I don't want any tension in the room. Well, tension's a good thing.
Yeah.
Tension means you're going somewhere. Tension means you have something, because if you have some tension, the people that are pulling the wrong way are going to get out of the way. They're going to get in line, or they're going to get ran over.
Right.
And it sounds like a harsh way to put it, because we want to love on everybody.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's where the uncomfortable conversation comes in. Jason,
you
everybody else is pulling their load and you're sucking right now.
Right.
Okay. Well, nobody wants to suck. I did not want to suck, but because they brought it up to me and they told me this, I got my butt in gear. Sometimes that's all you got to have with your board members, with your committee members.
You gave an example of how you preface these conversations, because you've had a bunch of them where you're like, hey, listen, we need to have a difficult conversation, an uncomfortable conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You said that. That's a real life example, a real tool that folks can use.
Literally use those words.
Sandy,
look, I got to have a difficult conversation. It's uncomfortable.
What did you use? What vernacular have you used in the past?
Oh, gosh.
Or what would you nudge folks
and from my DISC assessment, Jason knows that I'm the type of person who likes everyone to be happy, right? I want to make everyone happy. So it was always
Trevor.
I think Trevor and our assessment would be about the same. So it was always difficult for me, right? Yeah. And so I would, a lot of times lean on a chairperson to take on that role and, take that leadership role. Not that I never had those. What's that?
Yeah. Be the bad guy.
No, not really. I mean, I wouldn't say that. Of course, there were folks that they weren't part, they weren't, we had some committee members that, kind of like were on the side where the chairperson was not, working directly with them. But really, I mean, it was a matter of, we're having some challenges, and if, where can we make changes to fix them? And I mean, sometimes it was not the right fit. Yeah. And we would, but here's the thing, Jason and I were talking the other day about square pegs and round holes. Sometimes they're just not the right fit. And so, you really have to work within someone's strengths, and it's identifying those strengths. Okay. Listen, I had committee members who were like, I hate asking for auction donations. I hate it. Okay. So let's have a different conversation. Maybe you were in the wrong place, and let's have a conversation about, where you would be a better fit.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think that's a really good point, Sandy. Sometimes we have some great people on our boards, but we're trying to push them into a seat that they don't belong in. There's a great book, and I can't think of the author's name. It's very popular. It's called Good to Great. Mm-hmm. And the basic premise is we want to get the right people on the bus, and then we make sure that we get them in the right seat. Because you could have somebody who is phenomenal. You could have somebody, but they're just in the wrong seat because, again, it's not their strengths. And things like a DISC assessment. It's not very expensive. Great tool you could do with your board, with your committees, to understand how they think. How do they, how are they built? What are they doing? We have a test that another deal that I say deal a lot, test that we worked on. We did this in Dallas, where are you a doer? Are you a thinker? Are you an intuitor, a feeler? And it really matters how people communicate, because that way you can get to them. Because a doer is just going to say, I got things to do. I don't have time for all that. Just tell me what it is, because I got to do. Mm-hmm. And the thinkers, they want all the information. They're going to want a tremendous amount of information, more than probably what's really necessary, but that's just the way they're built. Mm-hmm. A feeler, they want the, let's sit down and discuss it. Let's have a cup of coffee. Mm-hmm. I really want to come in, have a seat, and do this. And intuitors are kind of all over the board, but thank goodness there's not very many of those. Yeah. Because that's what I am, and we're all difficult to deal with. But these communication styles are very important. Yeah. And it's funny because, Sandy, you're talking about the DISC assessment. It really does. Because people that are really, I really want everybody to be on the same page. I want to be happy. And we'll avoid that conflict, knowing we will. And once we understand that, then we go, okay, I know that I'm going to avoid that conflict. I know that's who I am. I'm going to just try to sweep it under the rug and not think about it because I want everybody to be happy. I want to feel good. But that's when it's back to when's it most important time to tell the truth? When you least want to.
Absolutely.
And that's when you have that conversation. You go, I'm feeling like I might need to have one of those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think you do, you really do.
Yeah,
I promise you. And so once you do it though, what comes out of that, getting that board is you'll take somebody who was disengaged, not moving the needle, not participating, and all of a sudden you move them over to the pull side because you've created some tension and they're back to pulling their load and some, and then other people will see it. Wow, what got into Jason? All of a sudden he went from, Stink City to all of a sudden, man, he's got the highest marks in the whole thing. And all those things start happening and it creates that positive momentum and it starts getting people engaged and their success. Yeah. I happen to be a proud Oklahoma City Thunder fan. I can tell you, I was at all the final games, the playoff games in 2012 when we made the run to the finals. I haven't been this time because, things kind of fell off. I wasn't watching them all the time. But guess what? We're winning again. I'm back to wanting to go to games and watching everything.
We've known as a front runner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he hasn't jumped ship.
No, I didn't jump ship. I didn't jump ship, but definitely was back. I was back on the bandwagon. It made it a lot easier.
Sandy, you had something you wanted to add. Sandy, you had something you wanted to add.
Yeah. So I was going to say, you make a good point, right, about firing people up. And so a lot of times, and, if you listen to our webinar a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about the checklist, when to start recruiting, right? And we were like, okay, right after your last event, that's when you should start recruiting committee members. Now, that's about a year, right? That's about a year away. Now, if these board members or committee members don't hear from you for months, well, their engagement and their fire that, everybody's fired up after an event, right? And so they're ready to go. Yes, I would love to help next year. And then they don't hear anything, right? And so you have to share that impact in regular touch points, and continue to share that impact with them and what the organization is doing and what they can do, and them being part of that. And so, so that when you do get, 6 months into it, like, all right, we got to start recruiting sponsors. We have to start, soliciting maybe they're ready to go because you have brought them along on this journey the last few months.
Sounds like a great job for the board.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
it sounds like a great job for the board. Jay, real quick, I was like, I was just thinking, of course, because I always come back to this as like a thing where it's like, if you don't have something for your board to do, just tell them to start thanking people, for coming to the, you know what I mean? It's like, hey, you can tell them how to thank them. You can give them the thank you cards. You can write them the script. But if they need something to do that will equate into fundraising success long term, have them say thank you. And then, what do you mean? Here's the list of people I want you to call.
That feels good. That feels good.
Don't ask them for money. I don't want you to ask them for money.
Don't ask for money.
No.
Yes, you don't need to.
They enjoy
and it's
it.
amazing.
It's engagement for them.
Well, and it lets them practice. It lets them start having that conversation so they get comfortable on the phone.
Reps. Yep, absolutely. There's some fascinating data about boards thanking people and how I guess the prowess of the position, the fact that it's personal, all of these things about retention and growth from what you can get out of supporters from a time and a monetary perspective. The data on boards saying thank you to people from events or after a big campaign where where a goal was met and things of that nature. There's tremendous data about boards just saying thank you. So if you don't know what to get out of your board right now, or you want to kind of like shake it up a little bit, you can start by having them say thank you. Yeah, really good. Yeah.
Just giving them something to do, having something positive for them to do all the time. It kind of sounds like, well, everybody's going to get tired. But what I found in my experience, and you can tell me, Sandy, about yours, is sometimes, as leaders, especially, executive directors, CEOs, because you're part of the board and you're on those, you kind of get tired. It's like, okay, well, I just want to, we've just got all this other stuff we've got to get through. And you still have to run the rest of the organization.
Sure.
That does take time. It does. And it's a necessary part. Something that I think is a good practice is to, when you're, starting your committee and you've got some people that are lined up, they've got that excitement. They said, yeah, I'll be your committee chair next year. And you've got somebody to commit to that, is to start having some meetings with them and start giving them some parameters. One of the mistakes that I see happen in boards, committees, just in general things at all, is that we leave things too open-ended. If I give you a choice of 3 right options, they can do it. But if I just say, hey, go find, we need some centerpieces, and you just don't leave it alone, it's paralysis from analysis. They're never going to make a decision. Right. But if you give a committee, say, hey, we've got 3 options. These are the 3 that we have. 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. Which ones do you guys want? Okay. We got the committee said, we're going to go with choice A. Great. Good job, everybody. And let's move on to item number 2. And I think that's where, as fundraisers, and I'm going to give you some examples. So we work with some national nonprofits that have some their regional reps. They'll do 15 to 20, sometimes even more than that, fundraisers per year. That means 15 to 20 committees they work with, and they're doing all these. Yeah. And I was talking to one of them, Nathan, guy lives here in Oklahoma, and I was talking to him, and he said, well, he goes, I've learned that if I'm going to be able to make this happen, to be efficient, for us to hit our goals, he goes, I have to limit their choices. If I leave it open-ended, they're never going to get anything done. We're still stuck back at square one, and we'll never get there. So I just give them choices. Here's A, here's B, here's C. We know all 3 of them are going to work. I know they're going to work. Okay. Yeah. He goes, these are good choices, but they just get to choose. That way they can individualize it for their own event. They can have ownership. They can have these things, but I limit that stuff. Yeah. And he said, I tell them, here's what our goal is. This is what we go. Does everybody agree? This is what we're going to do. Yeah, everybody does. Okay. Now we've got some accountability. They've got some choices. And so I can take them through, because he said, I know what I need them to mostly to do is to sell tickets and to help and to sell the sponsorships and underwriting. That's the most important thing for them to do. Mm-hmm. But he goes, if we get all caught up with all this other stuff, we'll never get to the part that I need them to really focus on.
Oh, wow. I love that. Hey, Jay, I love that point.
I love
Ken,
question.
Great question. Okay, I love it. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for the feedback. Could you please go back to basics? How do you find good board members when you, as a nonprofit, are not a big organization, a big dog, in the eyes of those who might be great potential board members? Sandy, you want to start?
Yeah. So I love the idea of working with your current board members to open up that network, right? Yeah. Recruit. They know what it takes. They know what it takes to advance your mission. They are vested, right? They're invested in your mission, and they have this network, and that's why you brought them on, right? So let's have a cocktail party, or not a cocktail party. It doesn't need to be anything crazy, if you're a smaller organization, but have something where they bring a +1 to hear about and again, though, you have to, once you're having those individual conversations, though, you need to make sure that it's the right fit, right? And that, you can bring them along and get them to where you need to be. And again, find, we used to, and you talked about choice, with my committees, I had, a certain amount of positions I needed to fill. And I would put it out there. Well, where do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself in this committee? And so, just let them self-identify too. So.
Love it.
Go ahead, Jason.
Well, I think the first thing that you've got to say is who is going to be a good board member.
Yeah.
And really, what am I looking for? What is a good board member to me? Because if all you're trying to find is somebody that's interested, has got a pulse, and will show up and vote, you can go out here on the street corner and find somebody said, I'll do anything, mm-hmm. anything helps, God bless. They'll come be on your board. Mm-hmm. Because basically, because I got a point I'm going to make. Because a lot of times, compared to some of the board members that we have, they would be more effective. Because all we have is somebody that shows up, eats, takes, they sit there and go, yeah, I'm on the board. And they're going to show up there for snacks and the committee meetings and stuff, and drink the wine and eat the cookies. But when it comes down to put the rubber to the road, they don't do anything. Mm-hmm. And so we got to say, who is it? For one, I got to have somebody that's going to be it that's going to do something. So as we're looking around, I think sometimes we get so caught up in, I've got to find somebody who's a banker, who's a lawyer, who's a doctor, all those kind of things. And we get this preconceived notion of who it is. And maybe we're missing out. You said it was interesting, Sandy, because you said bring a +1. Well, sometimes some of the most effective board and committee members aren't the doctor, the lawyer, the executive, all that stuff. It's the spouse of those people that who is very effective. Okay. Yeah. I've got a friend who's his wife's a doctor. She's busy. She's real busy. She didn't have time for all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But he, on the other hand, does. He's really good at this kind of stuff. But they're all wanting her to be on the board, and she doesn't have time to turn around. Yeah. So it's real interesting that we're sometimes thinking about the wrong people. We're thinking in the right way, but we're maybe picking the wrong person. Whenever they would be much more effective, much more engaged, much more ready to go and do to do that. The second thing is we decide that people are too busy. Well, they're too busy. I don't want to do that. That's the first thing I look. Are they busy? Because if they're busy, that means they're going to get stuff done.
You don't want to ask them because they're too busy, you think? Yeah.
Yeah, I think people will say, well, they're so busy. I don't know. They wouldn't have time. Yeah. That's what I want. I want somebody that's busy. Now, when I use the doctor example, I'm just saying because she's on call doing all this kind of stuff and all the stuff within the hospital. I'm saying.
And you're projecting that.
Yeah. But the whole thing is we got to look for people who, number one, who are going to care about our mission, who have something to offer. And either they have financial capacity or they know people that have financial capacity. Mm-hmm. I had somebody who was on a board that I was on, and God bless her. She was a lifetime career student. She was 60 years old. She was still going to school, had no money, and she really didn't know anyone. She was as sweet as she could be, and she was a phenomenal volunteer. And that's where that was the seat on the bus that she did. She was a great volunteer coordinator, and that's why she was on the board. Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying is we had to find something that she could do because she was not going to call people for money. Right. It was never going to happen because she didn't know anybody. Right. And the second thing is if you don't have anybody, most powerful fundraising tool is right here. It's also the most powerful board recruiting tool. We all know people, and this is all about relationships. And it may be the conversation where you pick up and say, hey, look, I just started this nonprofit. I know that you care. We've had a relationship. We've known each other for 15 years, and I need somebody. You're a go-getter, and I'd like you to come be on my board. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a pretty powerful ask. And it's hard. It's for somebody that goes, if they've got any feelings for you at all, they're going to say, yeah, I want to come help you.
Yeah.
And to Ken's question, are you both saying and suggesting it's like, hey, Ken, pick the perfect profile of the person that you want on your board before you choose type thing? It's okay to think.
Yeah. If you got no board members, that's even better because now you can start fresh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you can, seriously.
Nowhere to go but up, baby.
But you're honest about it. But don't go in there going, well, we don't have any board members. Say, hey, we're restarting.
Yeah. Right. But where do you think he should prospect, right? Where should he start? Let's say he has no board members and he needs to get a start.
Start with people that you know. Because they're going to talk to you for number one. Number two, you're going to be able to have some time because whatever the mission is that you're doing, whatever the critical thing that you do, you're going to care about. Well, they're going to have a relationship, so they're probably going to maybe care about that too because they care about you, and because it's not what you know, it's who you know, and it totally is. I mean, it's all one relationship built on another. I'm going to go try to find somebody that people want to be around, and I'm going to talk to them like that. Sandy, I know that you're very well thought of in your community. I know people love you. I know people that they would love to serve with you. And I'm asking, would you come be the anchor, the cornerstone for my board?
It's a good way to start. I love that.
I mean, back to the whole thing. When do we least want to when it's most important time to tell the truth? When we least want to. This whole thing blew up. Everybody left because I didn't do a very good job. Yeah. And I'm not saying that's what it was, Ken. I'm just saying
but
you just got to be straight up with people. That
captivates people.
It does. People, because you know what people like better than seeing the mighty fall. What is the one thing they love? The comeback.
The comeback. Yeah.
They love the comeback.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Everybody loves the comeback story.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too that's a challenge too for someone who is, walking into the role of an executive director and inheriting a mess, right?
Yeah,
A mess of a
sure.
board, or and so start fresh, start having those conversations, and that's a good time to maybe sunset some board members who maybe shouldn't be there, or then get them energized or re-energized, and start looking for fresh talent.
Well, and we have this deal, and I go back to your eggshell comment. We're so afraid we're going to offend somebody. Fine, offend somebody.
Yeah.
Right.
I think without typecasting, though, we were talking about the DISC assessment and just being pleasers, right? We just we want everyone to be happy.
Yeah.
Without typecasting, that sounds like most prototypical executive directors and CEOs, right? I mean, they really want.
Yeah, and I think there's too like this air of, I'm just happy that they said yes. With certain executive directors, and just we need people, and they said yes, and so you're walking on those eggshells because, again, you don't want to offend, you don't want them to say, oh gosh, like and you're trying to build a partnership, but you don't want to overwhelm, you don't want them to say no, and so
yes opens the door, yes is not enough.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Good stuff. Hey, a last call for questions. We're going to give something fun away.
Yeah. Let's give something away.
Come on, let's keep talking about
That's my favorite part. I love to give stuff away.
Are you going to do it? You want to do it?
Well, no. Okay, let me just pull it up real quick. Hold on a minute.
Oh, no, I mean, do you want to do the call? It's really fun.
Sure.
No, I mean that.
Well, I'm just going to pop it up on the screens while I'm trying.
Hey, everybody, we're going to give something away. We're going to give away. What do you want to give away, Sandy?
Let's see. What did we do last time?
A golden ticket.
How about Tuscany?
Oh, wow.
Golly, give the farm away. Okay,
Jeez,
fine.
Okay, yeah.
Fine.
Let's do a trip to Tuscany.
Hey, text HGA to 73747. It's going to pop in here. We're going to do this.
Yep.
And whenever that happens, when we get that, you're going to text us in.
HGA to
roll
73747.
Yeah, HGA 73747. It's going to pop in here,
and the numbers are coming in. I'm gonna throw it through the randomizer. We had so much fun. It was so funny last week. The randomizer. Oh my god, it's awesome! I was like, "Hey, Steve,
it was a friend of yours, right?
How are you, brother?" It was so great. It was so great. Hey, you got the more numbers coming in. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you. I'm gonna do a call here in a second. We're gonna give away a Tuscany. A 6-night stay for 2 to Tuscany that you can use at your next fundraising event, so you won't need to bug your committee about getting auction items. No. Yeah. We're going to help you with that lift.
No, you're going to take it and say, "Look, I went to one webinar, listened to this deal, got a trip, and you guys got to go get your own."
You're going to set the bar. You're going to set the bar.
Hey, I want everybody, if you have any other questions, any follow-ups, or anything under the sun fundraising, go ahead and click on that QR code and sign up for a free coaching call with Jason. If you have any questions about anything under the sun fundraising and want to talk about committees and what have you, I'm putting Sandy's business in the street, sandy@hgafundraising.com. Feel free to just go ahead and email her. Show Sandy, Jason, everyone some love on LinkedIn. Thank you, Courtney. Appreciate you. And then do us a favor, and also, Courtney, put up the YouTube channels. So where all of these webinars live is on our HGA Fundraising YouTube channel, and the Hey Nonprofits podcast lives on the Raise More Money channel. It's a really cool one. Mm-hmm. The Raise More Money channel on YouTube as well. So you can see all these webinar episodes, every podcast that we've done. We've done in totality over 400 of these episodes on both channels. So check it out. Tons of content. And like I said, show some love on LinkedIn if you don't mind. And that way we can connect and communicate with you there. So, all right, here I go. I got, here I'm calling. Oh, make sure your ringer's on, whoever the lucky winner is. And we can talk. Here I go. Giving away a Tuscany trip.
Hold it up right by the microphone so we can hear.
Okay.
Hey, this is Austin.
Hey, Offen, how are you, man?
I'm good, Trevor. How are you?
I'm doing good. Hey, thanks so much for coming again. I appreciate you. Do you know why I'm calling?
Yes, this is very exciting. We have our big gala in Hollywood in December, so we'll definitely be able to use the Tuscany.
Oh, cool.
Thank you so much for all the great information you guys provide and the webinars. It's all been so helpful.
Oh, thanks, Offen. I appreciate you. Thanks so much for coming, and thank you for the support. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to the team, man. Appreciate it. And we'll be in touch, and we're going to help in December. So it's awesome. Love it.
Great. thank you so much.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Have a great afternoon. We'll talk to you later.
All right, take care.
Bye now. Every time we do that, it's fun.
It's so much
Every
fun.
time.
So much fun.
It's so cool. Every time. Jason, that was such a great idea, man.
Glad you like it. All right. Hey, we're going to send this out. Please, if you'll do us a favor, share this with another professional in the business and somebody that needs this. Give us some love on that if you would. But it means a lot to us when you do that, because that's the way we get the message out, to be able to share this information with other nonprofits. Hey, we got a cool one coming up next week. Ooh. Sandy and Blake are going to be talking all things golf. We've got a lot of golf tournaments coming up. I know a lot of people are doing it, how to make money with golf, and they're going to be talking about it. So make sure you tune in next week.
My training wheels are coming off. It's going to be just me and Blake.
Love it.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, do us a favor. Sign up for that webinar. Show Sandy and Blake from our team some support next week. Same time, same channel, next Thursday. Everything golf. Wow. Sandy, how many golf fundraisers did you do, you think?
Oh, God. At least 15.
Yeah.
At least.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right
I may need to
on.
wear a polo next week.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, no, it's a great idea. And some gloves and like a visor. You know what I mean? Look the part. All right. Hey, Sandy, thanks a ton. Appreciate all the input. Amazing. Jay, thank you so much, brother. Amazing. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Thank you so much for coming and supporting. Means the world to us and the entire HGA family. This is a family business. Appreciate you all. Have a great afternoon. Later.